Hi, my name is Amy. Thank you very much for watching, and let's make some bad financial decisions together. This is for entertainment purposes only, so if you're entertained, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. So, happy Easter to those that celebrate it, and I thought I would talk about the buy, borrow, die strategy because that seems like an appropriate thing to talk about on a day like today. And I had actually not heard about this until this comment that I got about an hour ago. So, my initial impression before I looked any of it up was if any strategy hinges on me dying, it's not it's not the strategy for me. But it turns out that it's really just buying appreciating assets, taking loans against those appreciating assets, and then having an estate plan when you die so that the people inheriting it don't have a huge tax liability either. So, all debt is stress. But if you can handle the stress and get rich like a rich person, um, paying less in taxes is kind of expected. And if you're trying to reach FIRE, like financial independence, retire early, being as tax efficient as possible is really good because if you don't have to spend 25% of your income on taxes, then that lets you have, you don't have to have as much in order to live. You don't have to produce as much income if you're not paying as much in taxes. So, at the core of it, it's basically just thinking outside the box for alternatives to simple buying and selling. And if you look on YouTube about this strategy, every single person that you're going to get this information from is trying to sell you a course. But I'm here to tell you that there's usually, there's more than three ways, but there's three ways that this can be executed. One, a tried and true way is through real estate and being a landlord. And let me tell you that it is not as profitable as they make it seem, especially if you just have one. When you're first starting out, like you're not even cash flowing, and then all of a sudden the air conditioning unit breaks, and then you have to cancel that vacation that you were looking forward to because it was $10,000 and you just don't have any more money. And by you, I mean me, that this happened. So, I don't like real estate. I would rather, if I'm going to be in debt and play games like this, it be a business of mine or through stocks, which are the other two ways. And when I get closer to being financially independent and able to take the leap and just do my own side business as an actual business, I'll probably talk to an estate planner and a CPA just to make sure I form the stuff correctly. And maybe even they have lawyers that help you incorporate. And I just want to make sure that I do it in a very tax efficient way. But right now, I'm using options collateral, which doesn't charge me interest. It's just collateral until my options are, until they get called in. So if I get assigned all of these puts at the exact same time, that is the risk that I'm taking with all of this collateral. But it's not quite a loan yet. But once my margin is much better, like at 50% and above, I could take out margin, and I'm paying interest on my margin and use my margin to fund my lifestyle. And then the high income ETFs would pay the margin off. And so it makes it slightly more tax efficient, even though the distributions are taxes or ordinary income. But I would have the margin interest to offset it. And if I wanted to be even more tax efficient, I could invest in things like Ulti and Defiance ETFs that do pay a high yield, but the NAV depreciates. And then when I have to pay back my margin, I could strategically tax loss harvest and use that to pay off my margin, and then, wait 31 days and then buy back into those funds. And in that way, like, I would still get the high income and I would have the tax loss harvesting to offset the income that I'm getting. And I could do it with growth stocks and more speculative things. Like, if it appreciates, great, I have more buffer. If it doesn't appreciate, I sell it at a slight loss, and then it paid off my margin. And as long as I'm sustainable with this, then if I pay less taxes, I don't have to have as much income. The other way would be if I actually made an LLC for bad financial decisions, and then as I start having side projects like YieldMight, and I think for small business loans, I have to wait 2 years as a business and have, revenue. But after 2 years, I could take out a business loan and I can use that business loan however I want. So I could use that loan to pay for my lifestyle, and I can use the revenue I generate from YieldMight and whatever other sites I wind up doing to pay off the loan. And so I'm not getting a salary, so I don't have to do like a W-2 or W-4 for myself. I'm not a salaried employee. I'm using the business loan to pay my life. And then the income from my side projects are paying off the loan. And I can just keep getting fixed rate loans and using those loans to pay for my lifestyle, and then using the income. It's a very circular. So once I get closer to that goal, especially like after I sell my condo, I might look into doing this LLC stuff. And because I could have an LLC just for my investment portfolio and transfer my money into that and say, like, this is an LLC specifically for the Bad Financial Decisions channel, and I do high income ETFs for the channel, so this is required. And then I can just like have a business account on I think I could do it on Robinhood or Interactive Brokers, but I think my account would have to be bigger first, because I would probably just transfer like the Misty stuff over to the business and then just have that be like, this is like my business portfolio, and then have that margin as the using this strategy. Anyways, I was curious about how the death part worked, because estate planning is important. I know that for my own parents, that like in order to get onto Medicaid, you have to sell all of your assets first. Like, they will not take you unless you're destitute poor, which isn't helpful if your parents own a home and then you want to also own the home, because it really shouldn't cost literally everything you've worked for your entire life to have care until you die. But what my parents did was they formed an LLC, and it's complicated, but every year they sell their shares and they give us their shares. So in like 5 years, we'll own all of the assets that they have, and they won't own any assets. So when it's time for them to go onto Medicaid, they won't have to sell anything in order to get to that care. But with the buy, borrow, die strategy, it would be more like, could you rent out your parents' house when they're in the care facility, and that generate enough income for your parents to live? Or if you have a portfolio of rental property, is that enough for your parents to live in their care facilities without having to sell anything. So, but for the business side, it depends on what kind of business you formed. So if it's a sole proprietorship, when you die, the debt is settled with the estate. But for an LLC, if it's not a personal guarantee, which is not as common, the business will just continue to pay it. And then if it is an LLC and it is a personal guarantee, if the business defaults, then the estate will be responsible for it. Because it would be nice if I have like a portfolio and I put it in a trust and I'm using margin, that they don't immediately have to sell all of my shares to settle the margin and then get the leftover stuff. Like if they could just continue to get disbursements in perpetuity, I would rather do that. So, but it is also possible for there to be a death clause in your loan. So you would just have to check and make sure that, like, what the specific agreement that you had agreed to. But yeah, it is interesting that, like, if you die with, you still own your house, then your heirs will just get like it's called a step up in cost basis. And if they sell it within a year, then there's no tax on it. So don't take tax advice from me, by the way. But I am interested in exploring options as I get closer to financial independence to become more tax efficient, because high income ETFs are not tax efficient because they pay out the distributions and they're taxed as income. But if I'm just producing enough income through the high income ETFs and LEAPs to be retired, then, and I have to pay 25% to the government, then so be it. But every little bit helps. So anyways, what are your thoughts on the buy, borrow, die? And I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.